My guest today is Elisa Frankie. She has been a critic and blogger about Doctor Who for about 3 years. She runs the blog Whovian Feminism on Tumblr, and we're going to have a little chat. So, I'd like to start by telling us a little bit about how you got started and what your blog's all about.
I was studying abroad in London, and it was just a really, really cold winter. I didn't really want to go out and do anything. I'm from Los Angeles, so it was just more than I could handle. I'd been a Doctor Who fan for a while. I'd been introduced to by friends when I was in college, and you have a lot of downtime in a dorm room in a city that you're not familiar with, and there's snow 2 feet high outside your dorm room. And then I just got bored and I started blogging. I had one successful post take off around the beginning of Series 7, and I thought, well, I can do this. I apparently have an audience. There's people who want to talk about this. There's people who want to discuss it. And I just started a blog, and it took off from there. I did a post about, it was called Searching for a Dramatic Moment, and it was about the iconic image that was used at the beginning of Series 7, where you have the 11th Doctor carrying Amy Pond out of this explosion and Daleks and everything like that. And there was a lot of commentary when that started. Lots of people saying that, this doesn't look great. You have a doctor carrying their helpless companion. It kind of looks terrible for the companion, that she looks helpless, that she needs to be rescued, that they're only there for the doctor to save. And I didn't really get involved in that commentary until after Asylum of the Daleks premiered. And it was really this sort of pointless explosion, like no real need for it, and the doctor comes out carrying Amy, who's somehow knocked unconscious by the explosion, but he isn't. I didn't understand what was supposed to make that moment iconic for Series 7. It was really just a throwaway moment, and it felt like one of Amy's photo shoots, like from the beginning of that episode. It felt like a moment that was staged to give this big dramatic scene that could be put on posters. There have been moments where the Doctor has carried a helpless companion that it's made sense. You had the Doctor carrying Martha at the beginning of Martha's run, and that was because Martha had essentially sacrificed the last of her oxygen to resuscitate the Doctor so he could save everyone. So it got reblogged by one of the major Doctor Who critique blogs, STFU Moffat, and I got a lot of attention from that. And a lot of people reacted very positively, saying, yes, this is exactly how I felt. This didn't make any sense. I don't understand why this is happening. And so after that, I thought, well, people seem to really want this type of content. Maybe I could write more of it.
So, what kind of feedback have you had in general from your reviews and various editorials?
So far, I've gotten really good feedback for the work that I produce. After it was announced that Peter Capaldi was going to be playing the 13th Doctor, I got a lot of attention in sort of the mainstream media due to my response to Moffat's comments during that announcement. Quoted in the Washington Post, The Atlantic did a write-up in which they mentioned the Time Lady project that I was conducting to try to encourage the fandom to think about women who could play the Doctor. And within the community of the Doctor Who fandom, people have been incredibly supportive. People have been very kind, but of course you do get the harassment. You do get people who send you sexually explicit messages, send you hate messages. I've gotten a couple of messages so far telling me to kill myself, so it's about par for the course for a woman on the internet.
Has there been any episode that you particularly enjoyed writing and got a good reaction to and good interaction from?
I liked working on my review of the 50th anniversary episode, The Day of the Doctor. There was lots of good moments in there that I loved to comment on, that I thought were really great. And there were some moments in there that I wasn't quite as big of a fan of. I wasn't quite the biggest fan of the characterization of Queen Elizabeth. Clara didn't really have quite as big of a role as I would have wanted her to play in the overall episode plot, but I did love the callbacks to Classic Who, and I thought it was a really good setup for Matt Smith leaving and Peter Capaldi arriving. And that got a lot of really good responses. That was published in an anthology of sci-fi, some of the best sci-fi blogging and writing.
You mentioned that you often get some haters and detractors on the internet who can be quite vile. How do you deal with that?
You just sort of accept it, and you start to view it as something that is going to be normal, that's going to be common. I remember that the harassment for me really didn't start hitting until Gamergate started taking off, because it was very much focused within the games community, but there was very much this focus on attacking women only and women who are writing feminist commentary. And Anita Sarkeesian was actually a major inspiration for the blog. Her structure of her videos provided me with a structure for my blog when I was starting out in the early days. Watching what she was going through, watching what Brianna Wu and some of the other game developers were going through was really quite terrifying, because I had always been able to laugh off or shrug off the hate messages because it wasn't bad yet. And it was the yet that started to stick into my mind. Am I one blog away from getting the attention of a community that just wants to go after me, that just wants to hate me? You start working on a blog and you wonder whether you need to tone back a sentence or tone back a criticism because maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one that gets you the attention that you've been trying to avoid. Maybe this is the one that sets somebody off.
Obviously, every new Doctor receives a lot of hate and backlash from fans of the old Doctor or people who are critical. A worry I've heard expressed a lot is that if a woman did play the Doctor, it would be worse for them, that the harassment and the hatred and the vitriol would be worse for them. Do you think that's a valid concern?
I mean, I definitely think it's a legitimate fear, and it is something that is going to happen. I also don't think that's a reason that it shouldn't happen, because the longer we wait, the worse it's going to be. If this had happened back, after the 4th Doctor, after the 5th Doctor, after even the 1st Doctor, it would be a normal and accepted thing that the Doctor could become a woman, and we wouldn't be making such a big deal of it right now. So if we wait any longer, if we keep pushing this back further and further, saying now's not the time, people aren't ready for it, then no, we're never going to be ready for it. It's going to happen, and we need to be ready to protect that woman, whoever she is. And fans need to be ready to defend her from sexist criticism. The BBC needs to be ready to stand behind her and protect her from any sort of harassment that's going to come her way. But I don't think it means that we shouldn't stop it from happening.
You mentioned before the Time Lady project. Could you talk about how that got started and how it's developed and what the reaction's been like to that?
So it got started the summer when Matt Smith announced that he was going to be leaving the role as the Doctor. Major fan websites and major media websites weren't talking about a woman doctor as a legitimate possibility. And if there were lists that had women in them, they tended to be exclusive women-only lists, saying like, this is the special lady list for who could play the lady doctor if this could ever happen. And nobody was treating it seriously. Nobody was thinking, oh yeah, no, a woman, let's include her in with all the other actors as a legitimate possibility. So I wanted to start recommending actresses, because a lot of people hadn't even really thought about actresses to play the Doctor. You ask someone who could have played the 12th Doctor, they had a list of 5 men that they loved off the top of their heads that they think could play the Doctor. You ask them to name a woman, and they had to stop and they had to think about it for a while and go, oh, I've never really thought about it. I don't know who I would imagine in that role. I wanted people to start seeing the names of these actresses and thinking in their head, that woman is really great, she could be the Doctor. It turned into a project to justify the possibility that a woman could play the Doctor. I had to start responding to criticism, I had to start finding proof in the text to say that, yes, this type of regeneration is a canon possibility, it could happen. About a quarter of the recommendations were my own suggestions and recommendations. I wanted to kick the project off and have a couple of examples ready to go so people could start thinking about it and thinking about other women who could play the part. About 3/4 of the women on the list were suggested by my audience. In total, we had over 40 women suggested by the time the project was over.
You must have had a personal favourite.
Natalia Tena. I'm a big fan of her band Molotov Jukebox. I loved her as Tonks in Harry Potter and Osha in Game of Thrones, and I always want to see more of her.
Lisa Frankie, thank you very much for talking to us. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.